Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video I'm bringing to you my version of the mid-year book freakout tag for 2023. I've done this tag in the past 3 years and it is one of my all-time favorite tags to watch as well as do because it helps me summarize the first half of my reading year pretty well. It has a total of 13 questions and it is always very difficult for me to answer all these 13 questions, and it was the same for me to curate this list of books this year also. I'll drop all the questions in the description so that you can let me know your answers in the comments below. So let's straight away dive into the questions right now. Before that, I just want to tell you guys one thing. For most of these questions, I don't have just one single book as an answer. There are going to be multiple books. Having said that, the first question is best book you've read so far in 2023. For this one, I have 3 answers and I should say that all 3 are very equal for me. But based on the extent to which I love them and how they surprised me, I have ranked these as 1, 2 and 3. So of these, the first one is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is an adult contemporary romance. I knew that I would like this book, but I did not expect to enjoy this as much as I did because I was not able to drop down the book at all. I was reading this during my commute to and from office, and trust me, it was very annoying for me to keep this book down and go to work each and every day. I read this for 2 days and it kept on popping up in my mind throughout the day for those 2 working days, and I had such fun reading this one. More than anything, the love triangle in this one is the best part for me because I have not read any other book with a better love triangle than this one. Next we have Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, which is also one book which I knew that I would enjoy, but I did not expect it to be super atmospheric as it is. Because of that itself, I am very much pumped to read the other book by this author. I know that it is very huge in size, but if it is anything similar in tone to this one, trust me, I am definitely going to devour that book and enjoy it completely. But this is not one book that is for everyone because it is very slow in its pace and there is not much of a story. If you just want to get into a book and just live in it, you need to try this one. Otherwise, I cannot say that it is a great read for people who like plot and characters. But if you are someone who's into beautiful prose and great atmospheric world building, you need to try this one. And the last of these 3 is Sweet Bean Paste, which is an audio book that I listened to. It is actually a Japanese book that has been translated into English, and the audio book was also very short. I think it just ran for 2 or 3 hours in 2 times speed, and it was also out of the world for me. Again, something that I listened to while I was commuting to and from work, and there are multiple instances in this book which just made me super emotional and made my eyes well up because it was written that well. It is sad at the same time heartwarming. So if you are someone who wants to read something heartwarming and different at the same time addressing something that is very socially important in a strong way, you need to try this one. Question number 2. Best sequel you've read so far in 2023. For this one also I had to think for a bit because I have read quite a few series so far this year, and of all the series that I've read so far, there is this one sequel alone which just stands out for me, and it is A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab, which is the last and final book inside the Shades of Magic trilogy. Only after finishing this series, the sequel series for this one was announced by the author. I did not know that the sequel series was also going to start being released this year. If I had known that, I would have read the series far later into the year so that I could have continuously read the series instead of waiting for 5 to 6 months. Having said that, each and every book inside the series was very progressive for me in terms of enjoyment, and of all the 3 I can say that this is the best by the author inside the series because it has so much room to explore all the cool things that the author has created inside this world. And I have a dedicated review for this series already out in the channel. If I have reviews for any of the books that I'm talking about, all of them will be available in the description, so do check them out if you are interested and want to know more of my thoughts on the books. Despite being just a great sequel, it was also a great end for a series. I'll not say that the character work in this one was that great or anything, but the world building as well as the plot is just great. The magic system is also very cool, so if you are interested in any of those stuff, you need to try this one. Question number 3. New release you haven't read yet but want to. The book that I want to read very seriously this year is Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang. I have been meaning to read all of R.F. Kuang's books because I have not heard anything bad about her series as well as standalone so far. I've seen so many people raving about Babel as well as the Poppy War trilogy. I have just one book from the Poppy War with me, and it is also the last book. That's why I have not started with that series also. I wanted to read Babel in the beginning of the year also, but because of some reasons I was not able to put myself through big books, so I did not buy that one. Finally, she has come up with Yellow Face, which is a very short read, and I also have the audiobook of that one in Storytel. But I want to read this book physically, that's why I have not read it so far. I have deliberately not looked up anything about this book because I want to just get in there and explore it as such without knowing anything, because I want the book to surprise me as well as the author's writing to surprise me, because more than anything I have heard that R.F. Kuang's writing is just out of the world. So not just a new release that I have not read yet, but I'm very excited to, but also an author. Question number 4. most anticipated release for the second half of the year. For this one, I'm going with Sword Catcher by Cassandra Clare, which is the first book in her adult fantasy series. Okay, this is the first adult book that is being published by Cassandra Clare, and if you've been following me for a while, I'm sure you know how much of a fanboy I am for Cassandra Clare and her books. The Shadowhunter Chronicles as a whole itself is one of my all-time favorite series. I want to read this book and I want to rave about it here in the channel. I'm also eagerly waiting for the last book inside the Eldest Curses series, which has not been announced yet. I just have my fingers crossed and expect that it will be released this year. Let's just wait and see. Question number 5, biggest disappointment. Okay, for this one I have 3 reads. Of these 3, I can say that the third one is kind of okay, but the first 2 had really high expectations from my side, but they just swept me off my feet in a very bad way. Of these, the first one is The Casual Vacancy by J.K. Rowling. I did not have like sky high expectations or anything for this one, but I had quite a few expectations since it is written by this author and it is also her first adult work that was published. But trust me, this is definitely one of the worst books that I've read in my life, and if I had an option in life to go forward and just unread a book, this will definitely be one book that I'll do for sure. I hated it to the core and I don't want to talk much more about it. The next one is a book that I selected for a book chat thing that I've started doing from June. Okay, so this is the first book that we read for that purpose and it was heavily disappointing for me. I have a review of this one coming out pretty soon on the channel and it will have both spoiler free as well as spoiler free sections, and that book is Samsara by Saksham Garg, which is the first book inside an Indian YA fantasy series, and it was super disappointing for me. Okay, and the main reason I think behind the disappointment is that it was super hyped, okay, overhyped across the internet, in Amazon as well as Instagram. I did not see much of this on YouTube, but trust me, on Instagram it was super overhyped and it kept on popping up in my Amazon pages every time I bought some book from the site. And trust me, don't go forward and buy this based on all that marketing because it is not that good. I have a review coming out and I'll be talking about it in detail over there. The next one, which is kind of a disappointment, was Uzumaki by Junji Ito, which is the first manga that I've read by this author. I have heard really amazing things about this author's manga all over the internet, okay, and I wanted to start with this because I know that this is one of his most popular works out there. It was really good, okay, it just made me feel creepy and want to take a break from reading it at multiple instances, but as a whole it did not feel that great for me based on all the hype that it has all over the internet. So because of that reason, this was quite disappointing for me. Question number 6, biggest surprise. Okay, for this one also I have 3 books, of which the first one is The Tiger at Midnight by Swati Tirthala, which is the first book inside Tiger at Midnight trilogy, which is an Indian-based YA fantasy trilogy, and I should say that it was really well done. Of all the 3 books inside the series, my most favorite is the first book, which is this one. I think I rated it 4.5 stars and I enjoyed it from the first page to the last because the author had done it in such an authentic and proper way. Okay, it felt like a proper Indian series that is written by some author who's of Indian ethnicity but does not live in India. Okay, the prose of the author in this one was just super fabulous to read and it just gave me that proper Indian flavor without making it feel like trying so hard to make it Indian. The character work was really done, the world building was just out of the world, the prose, as I said before, was super gorgeous, at the same time not boring, and as a whole I just go forward and recommend the series to anyone who's looking out for an Indian based fantasy series. The next one is yet another Indian inspired YA fantasy standalone and it is Star Daughter by Shweta Thakrar. Okay, I heard quite disappointing things about this book after I bought it, but I should say that I enjoyed it from the first page to the last again because it was very sweet. Okay, it is not some kind of fantasy that has very high stakes. Okay, it is very simple to read, has really digestible writing, and the way in which the author shows this fantastical story but in a contemporary way was really nice. It is basically a Hindu fantasy and the author has written it in such a surface level that anyone who does not know about the culture can learn something about it. At the same time, people who are part of the culture feel understood and feel respected while reading it. It was not overdone, it was not underdone, it was just sweet and perfect for me. The next one is The Mountain Is You by Brienne Wiest. This is also one self-help book that I just read out of the whim because it was very popular and it was super insightful for me. Okay, this is one book which I want to get a physical copy of and reread very soon in my life because I don't feel that great about any audiobook to such an extent that I want to buy the physical copy after listening to the audiobook. Question number 7 is favorite new author. The author can be new to me or just a debut author as a whole. So I have 2 authors for this question. The first one is Shweta Thakrar, who's the author that wrote Star Daughter. I like that book so much, so I'm going to definitely read her second book, which was released last year. She just seems like a very sweet person and her prose is also really very easy to read. At the same time, it is very beautiful also. If she has followed the same kind of technique that she did in Star Daughter in her second book, which is The Dream Runners also, I think I will enjoy that book for sure. And another great thing is that both of these are standalone, so there's no commitment for a series. And the second author is someone who's called the Queen of Fantasy and it is Robin Hobb. Okay, I've read only 2 of Robin Hobb's books so far and both of those books I've read in the past 2 months. They are the first two books inside the Soldier Sun trilogy. The first one is Shaman's Crossing and the next one is Forest Mage. I have the third book alone, which I'll be reading in July, and I should say that even though these books are very huge and super slow, the character work as well as the world building of the author is just extremely good. Okay, I'm able to see the character properly, clearly, and it is just shown like through a transparent film for me. And more than anything, it just feels super realistic. Okay, it does not feel like fantasy at all. It feels like this thing actually happened to a person out there in the world. And it also has so many representations of mental illnesses and trauma that the author does not shy away or pan the camera out of the frame in order to make us understand. So because of all these reasons, Robin Hobb as well as Shweta Thakrar are two of my new favorite authors. Question number 8 is new fictional crush. I have said this before, okay? I've stopped having fictional crushes for some reason. I think I'm just growing old, I don't know. So moving on to the next question, which is question number 9. Newest favorite character. Okay, I had to think a lot for this answer because even though I enjoyed a lot of books that I've read so far in this year, there have been very few characters that I just felt very attached to. Okay, and of all the characters that I've read so far this year, one character who just stands out in my mind clearly is Sivagami from Sivagami in Sabadam by Amarat Kalki. Okay, Kalki is the author of Ponniyin Selvan, and this series written by Kalki called Sivagami in Sabadam was written by him 1 decade before Ponniyin Selvan came out. So even though all these series exist in the same world, they happen in a chronological order in Kalki's own imagination, and the way in which he takes out actual kings, real kings that we had in our Tamil history, and making them heroes is just amazing. Sivagami in Sabadam, loosely translated into English, means the vow of Sivagami. Sivagami is the main character around whom the story revolves. She's kind of Nandini from Ponniyin Selvan, but she's not the antagonist in any way. In the first two books, it felt like she's not that great of a character, but at book 3, something happens which just shows us why she is the main character of this series. And the way in which Kalki just develops her as a character is just amazing to read, especially towards the end. So from all the characters that I've read so far in 2023, Sivagami from Sivagami in Sabadam is my most favorite character. Question number 10. A book that made you cry. Okay, for this one again I'm going with Sweet Bean Paste because this is the only book that I've read so far this year that made me well up at multiple instances. Okay, it's not like I sat down and cried for a while, it did not happen like that, but there are so many instances during this book which I felt made my eyes tear up because it is very emotional in its tone. Okay, it's a very tiny book. I think it's just over 200 pages long, but the amount of emotional impact that it had on me while I was reading it was super immense. I want to reread this book so many times in the future. Okay, I cannot say that the experience of reading this book is a bad one or sad one because it is not a sad book. Okay, it's just an experience as a whole. I cannot say that it's a sad experience or a happy experience. It's kind of a bittersweet thing which will make you smile at multiple instances because of the warmth that it has. At the same time, it will also make your eyes tear up seeing some of the horrible things that are happening inside the book, even though if they are from the far past. So definitely one book I think everyone needs to go forward and experience. Even though it is very short, it will just make you feel all those emotions very strongly. I felt them so strongly that I clearly and vividly remember some of the scenes from this book in my brain even now. So this is definitely one book which made me cry. Question number 11. Book that made you happy. Okay, for this one I'm going to cheat a little bit because it's not a book and it's an author. Okay, and the author that I'm talking about is Ruskin Bond. Okay, he's one of the most happy book writing authors that I've come across in my life. Okay, all of his books are very short, and he himself says that he writes only short books because he does not want to write a book that he cannot finish writing since he's old and stuff. But each and every book that I've read by him so far just makes me feel so good. Okay, for some reason it just makes me feel so good and so happy, and it just makes me want to read more of his books. I've been using the Audible subscription for the past 2 months, and there are so many of his books that are available in the Audible Plus catalog. I think I've read like 4 or 5 of his books continuously in June, and I've enjoyed each and every one of them. Since we are also getting into monsoon, I think he's one of the best authors to read during that season. So he's definitely one author and one author's books which have made me feel so happy this year. Next we have question number 12, which is my most favorite of all the questions in this tag, and it is the most beautiful book you've bought or received so far this year. Okay, for this one I have 4 books and I have bought all these 4 books. Okay, so I've selected 4 books from all the books that I've bought so far this year, and trust me, I have bought so many books so far this year. So of the 4 books, the first one is American Gods by Neil Gaiman, and especially this edition. Okay, there's a story behind getting this edition because I bought this on Bookchore's Lock the Box sale in Chennai, and first when I got a copy of this book, I got a different edition which was not that good to look at. Okay, I just wanted to read the book, so I just went forward with whatever edition that was available there, and after I placed that in my box, like 1 hour after that, I saw this beautiful edition. It is not bigger in size, but just look at the gold foiling on the black cover. It just looks stunning. I have not read the book yet, but it just looks so beautiful. And I'm also pretty sure that I'm going to love this book because, you know, Neil Gaiman. The next one is this one, which is Small Pleasures by Claire Chambers. Okay, My camera is not doing great justice for this book right now, but trust me, it is one of the most beautiful covers that I've seen so far in my life for books, and also one of the most beautiful covers that I have on my shelf. Again, another book which I have not read so far, but just look how beautiful it is. It also has this kind of cut. Okay, I don't have any book that has this cut on the front cover on my shelf. This is the first to make it to my shelf. It is also changing all the color pattern on my camera as I show it here. The next one is also another book which I have not read yet, and it is Redemptor by Jordan F. Beko, which is the second book inside the Ray Barrer series. I have not bought the first book yet, even though it's been like 3 to 4 months since I bought this one. I think I got this at a great deal. I think it was just like 90 rupees or something. Just see the size of the book, and the copy is also super beautiful. It is a matte finish. Okay, so it does not have that stupid gloss which I don't like. And the fourth book is basically one of the most basic book covers, but it just depicts the idea of the book very clearly to the reader who has read the book, and it is The Clothing of Books by Jhumpa Lahiri. Okay, this is a book that talks about book covers. So it has one of the most simple book covers out there, because without reading the book you cannot understand what the book cover is actually symbolizing. Yeah, I can understand that it can be quite annoying for a few people, but it is definitely one of the best book covers that I've bought so far this year. So we've gotten to the last question inside the book tag, which is question number 13, and it is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? For this, I have one series, one author, and one big self-help book. And of these, I'm going to talk about the series first, and it is the Winter Night Trilogy by Catherine Arden. I've been meaning to read this series for the past 3 years, okay? And finally, I got my hands on the series in January of this year, and I wanted to read it in March, but because of some reason, I was not able to get into the mood of the series, because I've heard that it is super atmospheric in its tone, and it is also based on Russian history and Russian folklore, if I'm not wrong. So obviously, it is going to give me a cold atmospheric feel. I could not have that kind of feel in March, especially during this year, because summer this year in Chennai was one of the hottest summers that I've experienced so far in my life. So I'll be reading this during the monsoon or winter so that I can get the proper atmosphere of the book. Then the author that I want to read is Joe Abercrombie. I want to read at least his first law trilogy by the end of the year. Let's just wait and see. I have not even bought it yet, but I definitely want to read it. And now talking about the huge self-help book, it is Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss, which I bought all the way back in 2021, and I also have the Audible audiobook of this one in my library, so I can just go forward and listen to the audiobook and just continue on with the physical copy. It's just the size of the book that intimidates me, because I know that I cannot read this book within a span of 1 month, because if I read it that quick, I'll not be able to absorb everything that the author is trying to give me from this book. Despite all those things, this is definitely one book I want to read by the end of the year. So yes guys, that was my version of the mid-year book freakout tag for 2023, and I should say that I'm not freaking out, because I think my reading is on track for this year, even though there have been a lot of average reads only. And don't forget to leave your answers for the questions in the comments below, because I'd like to know them. And if you did enjoy watching today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. And if you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.